Hello, everyone, and welcome to the summer presentation of the Introduction to Social Welfare. That is Social Work 106. This is a class offered by the University of Alaska Anchorage School of Social Work and is a 10-week presentation of what is otherwise a 15-week course. What that means to you in real terms is that while you won't be doing double time, but you'll probably be doing time and a half at least in terms of keeping up with the lectures and the readings in this course. The department has very wisely instructed me to be sure that you have all the material and all the information that you would have if you took the full semester course. And of course that makes sense since you get a full semester's credit. And so in that you're taking a summer class, I suppose that means that you really understand that you're going to be working a little harder, a little faster. There are going to be some weeks where you're going to notice that there are as many as 5 different lecture windows available to you or that you're supposed to listen to in addition to your readings, of course, that go along with those chapters. These lectures, if you look at the total time for each of them, and I tell you in each window how many minutes the lecture is going to take so you can plan accordingly, you're going to find out that when you combine these things, I think with the exception of only 1 week, the lectures never exceed the 2.5 hours that you would spend sitting in the classroom if you were to take this class on campus for a 3-semester course. In fact, most weeks you're going to find the lectures take up less time than that. And this also includes the weeks where I assign you a video or a movie to watch in addition to the lectures. And so don't worry too much if you see a lot of lecture windows. Many of them are very short lectures. And frankly, the folks that taught me how to do online courses have encouraged me to keep lectures shorter, to have more frequent lectures, or a greater number of them, but for less time, in that it seems to be easier for students to work through them that way. So just a caveat for you as you work through this course. Most weeks you're not going to have anything like 5 lectures, but you're going to have probably anywhere from 2 to 4 in most weeks. Again, this is in part because we're compressing weeks, 15 weeks into 10 weeks in order to pull this class off. As for this particular class, well, I've been teaching this class since the late 1980s during the George H.W. Bush administration. That was, number 41. So really just coming out of the Reagan era, in fact, was when I first taught this course. I believe, in fact, this was the first class I taught for the University of Alaska at Kenai Peninsula College. It's been a very interesting number of years, and I've taught this course once or twice a year ever since, to teach this class through all the changes that have gone on politically since the days of the era of Ronald Reagan, through the welfare reform of Bill Clinton and the Congress that was headed up by Newt Gingrich during those years. That was a very arch conservative kind of Congress that was really deeply into cutting welfare benefits and had this very punishing view of welfare recipients, through what George W. Bush called compassionate conservatism and a rollback in benefits then, and then kind of a more accepting and encouraging attitude towards the oppressed and those that were cut out of our system in the Obama administration. And so the present presidential campaign features a person who calls himself a democratic socialist. And if you know anything about American history, and as you work through this class, you're going to find it's something that very few politicians have ever had the courage to describe themselves as anything involving socialism in America, because we have this misperception that socialism is this evil system when it's not. But in any event, Bernie Sanders is causes include things such as single-payer health insurance and free college and free daycare. And yes, we would pay more taxes, but the fact is that most of the countries, as you're going to find out during this semester, most of the developed countries in the world actually offer all of these things to its citizens, and somehow they get by. And yes, they still have to pay taxes. And so the question you're going to be looking at as we work through this material is, why not us too? My name is Bill Galic, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Alaska. I have been teaching for the University of Alaska system, either in Kenai Peninsula College or through the University of Alaska's School of Social Work in Anchorage since the late 1980s, and pretty much steadily ever since as a part-time adjunct faculty. My full-time work, if you look at my little bio in Blackboard, includes a variety of different experiences, including starting out with as a certification worker in the food stamp program and then the public assistance program in Central Florida. I worked in residential care and treatment of children removed from their families and treatment of ungovernable teenagers in Central Florida for about 8 years. After having completed my master's degree, I wound up in Alaska, where I lived for 28 years and split my time between working as an outpatient therapist at the mental health center in Kenai, and then moved over to the state and returned to work in child protection. I had also worked in child protection in Central Florida, by the way, for 4 years, and returned to child protection in Alaska for another 19 years until I retired from full-time work in 2014. In 2015, I moved to Indiana, but I'm happy to say that I still have the opportunity to teach online courses through the School of Social Work at UAA, and hope to be able to do that for some time to come. So I do bring some experience and some ideas to this class, and you'll be hearing them as the semester goes along. The email addresses you see on this page include first the university address, and secondly my home email address. The university, because of FERPA, prefers that we communicate through the university address. However, I will tell you that my home address is one that I'll see more quickly, and also is private because no one else looks at that email. The phone numbers, my cell number still has an Alaska area code, so that if you don't have a national calling plan that allows you to make long distance calls for free, you can still reach me without charge through my cell. The other address is my home phone. I still have a landline. I'm one of those people that like landlines here in Indiana, and you can leave me a voicemail on either phone number if you wish. If you do telephone me, please try to remember I am 4 hours ahead of you, and so if you're working in your class at 9 o'clock in the evening and come up with a question, when you call me, you're going to be getting me out of bed because it'll be 1 o'clock in the morning here. So if you happen to do that by mistake, please forgive me if I'm a little foggy or even a little grumpy at first, because well, that's the way I am when I wake up. But really, I think you're going to find the best way to reach me is through email, and I respond pretty quickly through emails. Now, I should tell you before we move into information about the textbooks, a little about the course, I suppose. Well, no, we'll just do it through this way. So the first year text, and this is the text that I really organized the class around, is the Day and Shield text, A New History of Social Welfare. I first used this textbook in the first edition way back at the first time I offered this course to Kenai Peninsula College students in the late 1980s. This book has become a mainstay in the social welfare education market, and to me, I like this book for a couple of reasons, one of which is it blends information about social welfare but puts it in a historical context. It goes back to ancient times, really, and all the way to the modern day, and just explains to you, shows you how the social welfare programs that we have and our philosophies about social welfare have evolved through time. This is a easy reading book, but it is a book written by Phyllis Day primarily, who's now, I think, probably well into her retirement, and as a professor, that's where Jerome Scheel comes in to kind of help her in updating things, I believe. Phyllis Day is a feminist writer, and you will see that in the course of your reading. She is almost certain to stir you up with some of her attitudes at times, but that's okay because when we get stirred up with our thoughts, first of all, it's much more interesting to us, and even if we disagree with it, it kind of shakes up our belief systems enough that we kind of have to stop and take a look at them and examine them a little bit, and that's what education's all about, right? So this book I think is going to be one that you're going to appreciate, especially by the end of the semester. It is pretty much what the course is structured around in terms of the timelines of the class and how the lessons are laid out. This is the 7th edition of this book that you'll be working, and the cover should look like this. Now, the cover for your other book probably does not look like this, and don't worry about that if it doesn't. You do want to work out of the 4th edition. Something odd is going on with this publisher, and I've communicated with them a few times and get nowhere with this, but they issue, when you ask for a hard copy of this book, they issue what looks like a self-published book. I think they call it Publish on Demand textbook, and it almost looks like it's not legitimate, but the content of that book is the same as if you were to somehow find this book to purchase with this cover on it. They have an e-version of this book that I think they're wanting students to order instead. You might save a little money with the e-version, but if you're like me, I like having a hard copy in my hands. I'm a book lover. That's another thing about me, and in any event, just so you know, this cover is likely not the cover that you have. You will also notice when we go through my lectures from this book, the cover that I have pictured in my lecture slides is the 3rd edition. And that's because this lecture was actually done when I was using the 3rd edition a year or so ago. But really, the lecture is still very valid and hits the main points. For those of you that may have a 3rd edition or consider a 3rd edition, I would say to you, do so at your own risk, because the test questions that I use from this book and the other book come from a test bank that publishers give me, so it's likely that there's going to be some 4th edition questions that aren't in the 3rd edition. That's up to you. I think either book is going to give you a good, a good learning experience. I would encourage you to use the 4th edition, though. This book, instead of taking an historical view like the Day in Shield Text does, really kind of looks at the present day and what are the experiences of public assistance recipients. And this is a book that I think she also takes the American system today and looks at systems around the world and asks that question that I think I posed earlier in this short lecture, which is, if other countries can do it, why can't we? And I think you'll be asking that question yourself as the semester moves on and comes to an end later. So this book, I think, it really kind of brings it all into the present day and gives you a little bit of the idea of what welfare recipients experience and why they do what they do and what they don't do that the public perception has them doing. For instance, this notion of the welfare queen, which really comes out of Ronald Reagan's initial campaign for president in 1980. His advisors had him use this issue as a wedge issue in campaigning. He was running against Jimmy Carter, the Democrat at the time, and this became a campaign theme for him about welfare queens, and it was really all about getting votes. The fact is that there are very few of those individuals out there. Yes, there are anecdotes of these women who scam the system and somehow manage to live high in the hog. You don't get much in welfare, but some people figure out ways to do this. But 99.9% of the people that receive welfare genuinely need it, are only there for a short period of time, aren't there as a lifestyle. And this idea that welfare recipients drive Cadillacs when you and I are driving Fords and Chevys really is a misperception. So I think Seacom's going to show you that. She's also going to show you why it is that welfare recipients might even have flat screen TVs, God forbid, and that it might be a good thing to do, a wise parental decision. Finally, this is a small book, and again, the cover is irrelevant. It just is a cover. This book is over 100 years old, as you can see, and is available in a number of different formats. And in fact, you can download this book for free from some places like, I think Amazon has it free for Kindles. If you do, as I've said elsewhere, be sure you get the unabridged, that is not shortened version of this book, not the abridged version. But you can actually find it for free in some places. If you any used bookstore, you can probably pick up this book in paperback for 50 cents. It's almost well, I think it is in fact a part of the whatever they call it when the copyrights are gone, and this book is just a part of the the public market or whatever. This book is about immigrants of 100 years ago. Now, just of some interest to you, Jurgis Rudkus is, or maybe interest to me, I don't know. Jurgis Rudkus comes from Lithuania with his family and his soon-to-be bride, looking for a better life in America. I think this book was written in 1906. My own grandparents and came over with an infant, my father, in 1904, and so there's a bit of a 1905 actually. There is something of a personal connection for me with this book just because some of the experiences that Jurgis goes through, and this is a very melodramatic book. I don't think, that I'm sure it happened to somebody like this way, but for most immigrants, it probably wasn't all this bad, but it is very, very melodramatic. And I am sure when I read this book that my own grandmother and grandfather who immigrated here from Hungary with very few English speaking skills experience some of the same things that Jurgis and Ona experience. However, that's not why I'm assigning this book. You may have read this in English in high school or in history, perhaps. It's a very familiar book to many people. And what it does is it shows you what America would be like when there were no social welfare programs available. I mean, this is 100 years ago or so, there was virtually no social welfare programming going on, certainly no government interventions. And what existed were some very inadequate private charity efforts to assist the needy and the poor. And again, you'll be learning a lot about this as the semester goes along. But this shows you what happens if somebody gets down on their luck and social welfare programs don't exist in America. It could be like this today if it weren't for the fact that the government began to step in through regulation of the workplace and through the implementation of social welfare programs that provide a safety net for us. Otherwise, we could be Jurgis Rudkus. Now, I understand that the first few chapters of this book are pretty dry, and just kind of bear with it and work through that. The book picks up after that. It's a couple hundred pages long. This book, by the way, Upton Sinclair was a socialist, and at the time that this book was published, socialism was becoming a very popular economic and governmental push around the globe. In 1917, in fact, the Bolsheviks, who were socialists, overthrew the Russian Tsar. You probably know this from your history, from your world history. And so socialism was becoming popular in the United States in the first part of the first 20 years or so in the 1900s. And a lot of people were very afraid of that and afraid of the European immigrants that were coming over at that time. Many of them were jumping on trains and looking for work because they were looking for work, and so they were riding freight trains and freight cars. They were known as hobos, I believe, or tramps in those days. And a lot of people mistrusted those guys because it was believed that they were spreading socialism around the United States. I mean, there are so many parallels historically between what was going on at the beginning of the 20th century and what is going on in the beginning of the 21st century today. Maybe different groups, different immigrant groups, certainly different economics in some respects, not so different in others. That this book also will probably have some modern day relevance as you read it. And of course, Bernie Sanders is, and I'm not pushing Bernie Sanders and his agenda, please don't misunderstand me, but the fact that he identifies himself as a democratic socialist told me a year ago he would never get anywhere in the presidential campaign. And I mean, who would call himself a socialist and run for office in the United States? The last time that happened was around the time this book was written. But there you have it. So there are some themes that are current today in this book as well. So you're going to read this book, you're going to do a short paper on it, and that'll be it. Now be sure you read your syllabus. It is available to you through the course menu. There's an item called syllabus, and while the syllabus is also broken up section by section there so that you can find it with the menu in Blackboard on that item, there's also an attachment that is a Word document version of the syllabus. You should download it, print it out, and keep a hard copy available to you at all times. This is sort of my contract with you about what to expect in the class, and it spells out a number of things that are very important for you to know. In addition, there is the course outline and weekly schedule is on the syllabus, and for those of you that want to read ahead of time, this will tell you when the chapters are assigned and what's assigned each week and what the topics are, those kinds of things. In Blackboard, your class is only going to open up a week at a time. This also tells you a little bit about how to get your grades. And here's an explanation of the grading system. Participation and attendance. I mean, you attend your course by checking in to Blackboard, and Blackboard does tell me when you do that. Not that I sit around watching, but it does tell me that if I need to know it, I can go back and look. But I also will you can get your 50 points also by really fully participating in the activities that I have set up for you each week in Blackboard. Discussion boards, I'm going to tell you more about that in a moment, but there are 10 discussion boards, one each week for the most part. There's a few extra ones in there, 10 points each. You have journal entries, 10 of those, 10 points each. Now the discussion boards are public discussions, that is you and your peers talking about topics that I give you. Your journals are private entries between you and me. So if you have a desire to, quote unquote, speak with me privately through Blackboard, you can do that through the journals. And more about that. Your paper in the jungle is going to be worth 50 points. You will have a written project, and this is sort of the major project this semester, and you're going to do this in a group, which on the one hand makes it so hard because you've got to coordinate with other people and everybody works at a different pace. I've learned this through this project, and there will be, well, more on that later. But it also makes it easier for you because you're going to turn out a very large paper and only have to author a portion of it probably. And so, there's a mixed bag there in terms of that particular project. That's going to be worth 150 points. Associated to that, there are going to be 2 points during the semester when you are expected to have checked in and left a mark in your group site. I give you a site for you and your group to work on together and to work on your paper together. Each of those check-ins are worth 20 points. You will, after the projects are all done, all of your classmates' group projects will be posted in a discussion board forum. You'll read your peers' papers on different topics from your own and learn from them as well and have an opportunity to participate in discussions about that. That's 50 points. And then there are 2 tests. The first one midterm for 40 points and the second one later in the semester for 60 points. Altogether, 640 points. There are 3 extra discussion boards. That is, in 3 weeks there will be 2 discussion boards, and if you choose, you can complete them as well and earn yourself some extra points that you're going to want later in the semester probably. So, and I do say, by the way, Blackboard gets confused by bonus points, and so I'll tell you this now, and I know I'll be telling you this later on. Don't worry about the percentage that Blackboard says you have. It's all going to be based on total points, not on your percentage in Blackboard. And these total points, here it is, are spelled out in the syllabus. And so just keep track of your points, and this will tell you pretty much where you stand in terms of your grade. Talked about this already. One way you can earn extra points, for instance, in discussion boards, well, here we'll just go right to this. In discussion boards, you get your 10 points through a couple of different ways. First of all, I will pose a question. You make what I call an initial post or initial response, original response, whatever you want to call it, to the question or the topic. And your response is to be a minimum of 150 words. Now that's not a lot, really. That's really not a lot. It's a small paragraph. Um, and you have a week to kind of think it over. I want you really, the intent is for you to do the readings and listen to the lectures before you respond to the discussion board question. And so at the end of the week, after you've read everything there is to read and after you've listened to all the lectures, then you can go in, you respond to this discussion board with a response of 150 words or more. And I really encourage you to write more than that by the following Sunday night. And then another few days pass by, and during that time, you should go back into that discussion board and read some of what your peers have posted for their original responses, and write a response, at least 2 responses to different peer original posts. So you're really discussing. And if you know how to use this discussion board tool, there's a button that says subscribe to this post, and you could push that and it will send you emails whenever somebody posts, so that if you put a response down and you click subscribe, then anytime somebody makes a response to that, you'll get an email and you can go in and look at it and choose to respond again. Really use it as a discussion point. This is the whole point. And this is something you will see me chiming in from time to time in discussion boards, but this is really something I consider to be between you and your classmates. Now I read all of the posts, and because I'm grading them, so it's not that if you don't see me responding, that doesn't mean I'm not looking at or reading what you're writing. But I won't generally respond to discussion board posts. I just can't keep up with all of that. But this is really for you and your peers to talk about the topics. So discussion board comes out when your class opens on Sunday morning. You have a week to do your readings and your lectures, and then by the next Sunday night, you should have made your original response of 150 words or less. Within the next 2 or 3 days, you go back in, you read some of your classmates' posts, and you respond to them. Now, those responses don't have to be 150 words, but they should be meaningful. Not just like, oh yeah, you're right, or I agree, or nah, I don't agree. They should be meaningful responses that says something and actually is a discussion point, right? So, but those don't have to be 150 words. So you got two responses by the following Thursday then, so this is like 10 or 11 days after the discussion board opened. The following weekend, which is like Saturday, Sunday, is probably when those boards will be graded, so that you'll see a grade coming really 2 weeks after the discussion board originally is posted. So just so you know. Remember again, this is a public post. Everybody can read what you write. Now, for your journal, that is private between you and me. And this journal is structured around current events. I want you looking at news. I want you looking at newspapers if you get newspapers or magazines. A lot of people are pulling these things off of the web, through social media and things, as well as just Google searches and things like this. You just want to find a current event issue that have something to do with social welfare or civil rights. Now, one of the things that I see happening sometimes in journals is people get all caught up in, the welfare queen thing, and so they start looking week after week after week for examples of welfare cheats. Please don't do that. They're anecdotes. First of all, they really are not what social welfare and social welfare recipients are all about. If you want to post one, fine, but don't make it like, your life, your whole semester's posting, because this is not what I want you to get out of this. I want you to look at the social welfare issues and learn from them, not just continue to feed some preconceptions that somebody may have given you. Now, this can be any number of topics. I mean, social welfare really, you have areas including such things as public assistance and food stamp programs, but this also includes things like education and what the women's infant, the WIC program. It includes just a whole number of different things you're going to see about and that just aren't coming to my head at the moment. So I think I have some suggestions later on of things you might be looking for, but social welfare is a broad topic, and really almost social security is another example of that. Veterans benefits. You're going to be reading all sorts of things about these things during the course of the semester, and I want you to see how what we're studying connects into the present day. Immigration, for heaven's sakes. I mean, the big topics in the presidential campaign, include things like immigration and Obamacare and healthcare and daycare and the expense of college education, those kinds of things, all might be relevant points for your journals. Civil rights is another thing, so that includes the inequalities that we're hearing discussed a lot in current debates and topics. Labor unions, there's a big push these days against worker rights by the conservative right in the political spectrum, and we're finding some worker rights rolled back by states that are that have administrations like Scott Walker's in Washington or Wisconsin rather, that are hostile to labor unions, public employee unions, and things, and so that's some more areas you might consider. Civil rights might be racial civil rights. It could be based on gender equality. Any number of different kinds of things. Of course, there's a debate about same-sex marriage and gay rights and transgender rights, and now bathroom access, those kinds of things. These are all things that apply here. And so I want you to find an article. Again, write a brief summary of about 150 words. More is, I like more, but at least 150 words. And then give me a paragraph with your reaction. I'm sorry, the article summary doesn't have to be 150 words. Just summarize the article so that I know what you're writing about, and then give me a summary of about 150 words or more. This is a private post between you and me, and so you can kind of open up a little bit. If you want to say a few things that you wouldn't want to say in the public forum, you can do so. Also, if there are, and sometimes these issues stir up private, personal things, I want you to be able to feel like you can bring them to me in this journal, in this forum as well here. So this is something you want to keep up on. This should be current. I don't want you waiting until the end of the semester, nor should you, for that matter, in the discussion board, and going back and filling in all the blanks. You should be doing this week by week by week. And this is an important point about this class. Keep up with it week by week. Don't let things fall behind, because you're going to have a hard time keeping up with things if you're not in this every week. So 10 points for your journals each week, 10 points for discussion boards altogether, 20 points a week. You're going to find that I have a very thorough description of how to get points and how I score these posts. Both, I think there's, this is, I think, a menu item in the first week called How Your Posts Will Earn Points. And it's also in the permanently, more or less, ensconced in the course, the course menu item, Board and Journal Grading Guidelines. And there are several sections available to you in that menu item that we'll explain all of this to you. And in fact, one of the things that's there is a very excellent example of a journal entry and how I would like you to do your journals. And so please be sure to take a look at that. For the jungle paper, we will complete this project by week 4, so you might want to start reading that book now. And you're going to write a paper of between 1,500 to 2,500 words. I used to say 3 to 6 pages, and I've had enough, but that's roughly what I'm talking about, 3 to 6 pages. But really, in the end, it's words, not pages, because people get very creative in making pages have 100 words on them or something. You know what I mean? With a lot of creative use of white space and larger font and those kinds of things. And although I am retired, I don't need 18-point font to read the papers. Thank you very much. So really, look at the number of your words, and I think any decent word processing program has a word count function there that can tell you where you are in that. But we're looking for somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 words. And a good full credit paper is going to have a brief summary of the book. I don't need you telling me what happens in the book too much because I know what happens in the book, but I would like to see enough of that to know that you've read the book. Your reaction to what goes on in the book, and then maybe something tying it into some course concepts. That's a good full credit paper for you. Now your term project, your research project, here's how it's going to be. I'm going to assign you to a issue of the day, something that, let's just say, should a woman be able to terminate a pregnancy if she so chooses? It's a controversial topic. It's not something that we talk about probably at cocktail parties or anything like this. Well, I don't do cocktail parties anymore. I don't know, wherever you're at, you don't really talk about abortion a lot with people unless you've got people that agree with you, because it's a very emotional topic, and for many it has moral issues attached to it and everything. And that's one of the reasons why I assign these things here, because we are going to encounter these issues in the social work field in our work. We had better be ready to gather facts on these issues, to consider the other side objectively, and to be able to elucidate what it is we believe, to know what we believe. Our clients may not agree with us, but what we have to know first what our own sense of beliefs and values are, and to know what that's based on, and to be balanced enough to be able to understand that the other side of this topic have their own points of view as well. And so when we work with people who disagree with us, we have to give them enough credibility, to be willing to consider where they're coming from. And so this is why I look specifically for controversial topics in this class. You will be paired up with another person, and this is a relatively small class, so that there's unlikely that you'll be given an additional person. And the two of you will assign either a yes or a no side to that particular controversial question. I will then assign another two students to the opposite position, and the four of you together will form a group, and you will present one paper together. So this is where the group stuff comes in. You're going to be coordinating your efforts and putting together one paper together. Now I have specifics spelled out as to what is expected in the paper, and you'll find this in the when your group is assigned. There's going to be a menu item that is also I think it's called Group Project Guidelines and Instructions or something like that. It'll be in the menu as well, so it will spell out exactly how, again, I want to see this paper look. The paper, 12 to 15 pages, roughly, that is 5,000 to 7,000 words. Now, that may seem like a lot, but remember, you're dividing this up among four people, so really, this is a project that's pretty decent for 150 points. But you're going to find that the group work kind of makes up for that a little bit. So be ready for this. Now, I'm going to tell you, some groups don't procrastinate. I say that. Some of us are last minute workers. And you know what we do when we're in a group? We drive everybody else in the group crazy. By the same token, some of us are very, very OCD about organizing and getting things done as soon as possible. And you know what we do to the other members of the group? We drive them crazy. So try to come out of your procrastination stage, come out of your OCD need, and try to meet in the middle somewhere, and be considerate and aware of the fact that everybody has their own pace. But whatever you do, don't leave your group down. Don't leave them high and dry. Now, if you get stuck with somebody who doesn't participate, and this happens often enough that I know it will happen again, if you get stuck with somebody like that, then plan to do your portion of the project without that person's input, so that if you were dividing up this, I said 12 to 15, I think I used to say 12 to 16. Let's say you decide you want a 16-page project, and in your group, and you're in the yes side, and your yes partner craps out on you totally. Instead of just preparing your 4 pages, plan on preparing the 8 pages. We want a full project. We want a full paper. And I had this happen last semester. 3 people in a group totally disappeared and only one person was left, and she did the paper for the project. Now, only she got the grade. The other 3 didn't get a grade, but nonetheless, she still put a paper together. And so that's the only time I've ever seen that happen. And I've probably done this kind of project, probably 30 times by now. So I think you'll find generally your groups will work together well, and many groups work together very harmoniously and produce a really great paper. And what I keep hearing from people when they work on these projects is, I never really understood such and such until I did this. I never really got that. And that's exactly what I like seeing in this. And this is exactly why I have you doing this stuff. The other thing is by the way, the groups and the topics are assigned randomly. Your positions are assigned randomly. And so it's very possible, if we were doing this abortion topic, that you're pro-life, but you get assigned to a pro-choice position. And boy, are you going to learn if you have to research what's behind the beliefs of the other side. And one more thing about that, this is not a persuasive paper, and so the intent is not for you to write a yes or no position that convinces the reader. The intent is for you to research what it is behind the yes or no position that those individuals use to justify their response. So we're going to have yes and no research presented in one paper, so the reader can then read this and decide for himself or herself. That's the whole idea. Now, because of the fact that I know that people do procrastinate, this is kind of the procrastination prevention portion of the project. I expect each of you to check in at least twice in your group site, and you'll have a group site assigned to you, at least twice during the semester, and I will give you specific dates when I assign the groups, and I will spell out what I expect you to do in each case. So if you don't do that, you're going to lose the 20 points here, but if you make yourself known and you've done what I ask, you'll get 20 points for that twice also. Once your papers are done, you're going to turn them in your group site in a spot called the File Exchange. I'll draw it from there. I print it out, and I'll make hand notations, and comment, and like you often get in papers you turn into your instructors, and then I will scan it back in and put it on your group's site, so that each of you in your group can read it and can pull it off and print it if you care to do that. Beyond that, I will take a clean copy of your paper, that is without all my comments, and I will post it in a discussion board forum, as I will all the other papers, and all of you will then go in and read each other's papers. So you're going to be learning, and it's all different topics, right? So you're going to be learning different things about different topics from each other. This is a small class, and so I think there's not going to be a huge number of papers this time, unfortunately, because it's a relatively small class. But you're probably going to have three groups, I think, and actually, you may not all of you may not have a partner. I don't know quite how I'm going to do this yet for this class because it is so small, but there will be probably three papers to read anyway. So you'll participate in discussion boards and earn points through that as well. Testing. Multiple choice, mostly multiple choice questions, if not entirely multiple choice questions. They will open, I think it's week 5 and week 10. On Thursday of that week, the test will open. And you can just take the test through Blackboard. You don't have to go anywhere. There's no proctors needed. It can be open book. I don't really care. But the test is timed. And so once you've opened the test, you'll have a certain amount of time. And it's a fairly liberal amount of time. I think it's an hour for the first one, which is a 40-question multiple choice test, and 2 hours for the second, which is a 60-question multiple choice test. That's a lot of time. And if you need to look up things, you can look up things. But if you've read the book, you're gonna be able to finish it in time. You can't open the test, close it, and go back, and the clock starts ticking again. Once you've opened it, you have to finish it, and if the 60 minutes expires in the first thing, the test will close automatically, etc., etc. So there are more explanations to this. Don't worry about it if you don't have it. Oh, one other thing, If you don't like your first score, you'll be able to go back in, take the test a second time during this 11 days that the test is open and available to you. And the higher your two scores will be the one that's recorded. So it's trying to make this user friendly. So it opens up on a Thursday in week 5 or week 10, and then it will close 11 days later on a Sunday night. So 2 weekends later, the test closes. And once it's closed, it's done. You can't take it anymore. So and there's no makeups. So that's still pretty user friendly, I think. I'll just say this once again, once the test is closed at the end of 11 days, it will not be available again. I mentioned this already. 3 optional discussion boards are posted during the semester at different times, and you can get up to 30 extra points for that. I would really encourage you to do this. You're going to want those points at the end of the semester, most likely. Even if you don't think that's worth much, it can make a difference between an A and a B or a B and a C. If you have 2 discussion boards, then one of them is extra credit. It doesn't matter. You can do either one. If you want to do both, which is how you get extra credit, then do both. Of course, you can choose to do neither, but you're not going to get any points in that event. But that's how you get those extra bonus points. The course opens to announcements. You've probably noticed this. Be sure to check every week or every day when you open up, however often you open this course. I hope it's every day, but I know it's probably not. Check to see if there's a new announcement. When I enter an announcement, I will also have an email sent to you that will have the same material in it. And so a couple thoughts about that. First of all, if you're finding announcements on that page and you haven't gotten an email at your university email address that has that same information on it, something's wrong with your university email address and you need to talk to IT about that. This is how I communicate with you, about issues that come up. And so if you're missing announcements, you're missing important information. So please be sure to, first of all, to read the announcements when you check in, and secondly, be sure that you're getting those emails. If you're not, something's wrong with your university email account and you need to get it fixed. And you have to talk to IT about that. So don't miss this information, please. Be sure to watch. The most important link each week is your weekly course content, and this is in your course menu. And so when your class opens up, there's announcements there, and on the left-hand side, among other menu items, is the weekly course content. When you click on that, it will open up the information that you are to be studying that week. And you will only have the current week and weeks preceding the current week. Every week, the class will open on a Sunday morning, and at 12:05 and a.m. that is. And so, well, first of all, I don't know. I guess it's 12:05 a.m. Alaska time. I don't think maybe it's Indiana time. I don't know. But in any event, one of the things that I know is I've gotten emails from students that were written at 3 o'clock Alaska time in the morning, and so I do know that there are some students online who work in the middle of the night, and maybe those are parents who are waiting for their kids to go to sleep, or people working night shift, or maybe it's just people squeezing in classes around work or whatever. I don't know. Insomniacs, whatever it might be. So I always have all the stuff opens at 12:05 a.m. on a certain day, and closes at 11:55 p.m. That's right before midnight or right after midnight. So every Sunday morning at 12:05 a.m., the new week's material is going to open up. And one of the things you need to do, understand that the weekly course content has a number of panels or slides or screens, however you want to call it. And you can expect this kind of format mostly every week. First, there's a slide or two where I kind of write to you about things that are on my mind about this topic. Please do read these things because there's a lot of thought involved in these things from me. Secondly, it's me kind of talking to you. It's my opportunity to give you a little bit of what I know or what I think. And it helps to orient your thinking around about the information that's being presented to you, and it's what I want you to understand. So there's 1 or 2 slides written by me. Then there's a listing of the weekly course objectives, your learning objectives for the week. Then there is the course assignments for the week, and that will be readings assigned to you, as well as if you have any, there might be a few extra readings that are assigned to you that are in the assignments link in the course menu, and there might be some videos to watch, or could be a website to visit, but also your chapters to read. and with a little explanation of each assignment. Next are the lecture or lectures, and there may be anywhere from, I think in this class, 2 to 5 screens with lectures on them. Just click right there in Blackboard. So all you got to do, click on it. The YouTube video will come open, and you listen to me telling you all the things that I think about and know about, and you're richer for the experience. Okay, once they're done, the next screen is going to be the discussion board screen, and if you click on the I think it's usually response to readings. You click on the underscored title on that, it takes you to the discussion board forum, and you click on that question for that week, and you can type in your response. Remember, click subscribe to this or to this thread so that you get notices when somebody writes to you. Likewise, when you're commenting on someone else's original response, you can also subscribe to that thread. So again, use this as an opportunity to discuss back and forth, not just to respond and fulfill your requirements. You have to use your browser back button, I think, to go back to the course then. Don't think that it's done, because it's not. Then you have your journal, and the same thing, click on the underscored title, and it will take you to your journal post where you can type in your journal. Go back again to the course. Usually, if there are tests, that's week 5 and week 10, you're going to find the information about the test next usually. After that, you will have, and again, you can click right in the Blackboard course to take the test. Don't have to get up from your seat. After that will be a panel with the PowerPoint slides. I give you a copy of all the slides so that you can print them out if you want to, or go back and study them later. Of course, the disadvantage of that is you don't get my golden voice, but if you really want to kind of cut through the chaff and just see what's what, well, there's the outline, at least for my lecture. And then after that, there's going to be 1 or 2 slides again with my closing thoughts, and again, some more things for you to think about. Please do read them. I really work hard in trying to present you with something quality there. Okay, so read every slide each week to the very end of the course. Be sure that you get to the point where I'm saying, think about this for this week or whatever, my closing slides, and then you're done. Most of you have been online enough to know about this, but we all know all capitals, it kind of represents somebody yelling, and this may seem kind of trite. At first I guess I kind of thought that was ridiculous to think that, but this is sort of what's accepted. So don't type in all caps, okay? Secondly, remember that that there are people actually reading what you write here. And when you write, you probably know this, we can't communicate. When we talk to each other, we have our tone of voice, we have our eye contact, we have our body language, all sorts of different kinds of things that help to add meaning to the words that we're speaking. And so when somebody says, something with a different tone of voice, it means an entirely different thing. When we type these things, none of that is there. We're just looking at words. And what we as readers do oftentimes is put our own state of mind or our own interpretation onto what is in front of us and read it very differently sometimes than what the person really intended it, is how that person intended it to be communicating. So what I'm saying to you is remember that we have to have certain rules about behaving online, and one of them is just understand that when you type, nobody knows when you're being sarcastic, you're joking around or anything like that if you don't say that. And things that seem pretty bland can sometimes be offensive to others. Now, offending others isn't something that, it's not like the end of the world if we get offended, but we have to be careful we don't go overboard on that. Certainly don't say things that are demeaning to others, that derogate others. We have to be very conscious of the fact that comments between men and women, or not only men and women, but between human beings, oftentimes are misinterpreted, having some sexual content, some pushy content, those kinds of things. And so we want to be very careful that we're respectful of others and their feelings at all time. There is a real live human being on the other end of this that is reading what you wrote. And so always remember that others read what you write. And by the way, most all of the things that you put in there, you can't take back. You can't erase it. You can't go back in and delete it later. And so once it's there, it's there. So think carefully before you type and say what you mean. Be honest about things, but do it in a respectful way. Never threaten, never post comments that derogate others, or that can be, confused as being sexual harassment or anything of that nature. Okay. And the other thing I just encourage you to do on the other side of things, forgive other people if they make mistakes. If people are abusive in any way, shape, or form, however, and it's disturbing to you, please let me know. The university does have a format for dealing with those things, and I will see to it that they're followed through on carefully. So for this week, there's a discussion board that I think it says your first discussion board or something like this. And really what it's going to be about is you. And this is your opportunity to kind of introduce yourself to everybody else in the class, say what you're comfortable with. If you like to do so, feel free to add in photographs or photograph. Pictures kind of add to posts, and not only now but at any time. Feel free to add in illustrations and things and whatever you're writing about, what kinds of things you like, where you come from, why you take in the class, what things interest you, what you do with your life, etc., etc., etc. These are just some ideas here. Just go with this, but you're introducing yourself here to each other. Remember, once you've made your post by next Sunday night, to go back in a few days later and go back in and read some of your classmates' posts. I hope you read them all. Again, this is a small class, and let everybody know that you see them and that you're welcoming them there. Your first e-scrapbook entry. Watch the news for current events related to social welfare or civil rights. Includes things like, social programs, the budget, legislatures and Congress always debating the budget. What's important, what's not. Is it defense or is it social spending? Is Social Security breaking the government? You see all those kinds of discussions. Education, civil rights, racism, sexism, healthcare reform, immigration, same-sex marriage, gay rights, all those kinds of things. Any of those topics. Pick one. Write a brief summary of the article. Give me the title of the article, where you got it from, what your source is, a brief summary of the article, and then a reaction of 150 words or more. Again, go to Board and Journal Grading Guidelines for a beautiful example of how I want journals done. No readings are assigned for this week, and partly that's because I know some students don't have their textbook yet in the first week, and also just because, there's enough to think about here to get started. Next week, though, you're going to be assigned the first 3 chapters in the day text, and so if you have that book, I'd encourage you to start reading it now. And when you read chapter 1, pay particular attention to the 9 American values. This is a foundation issue, a foundation concept for this class that she will go back to frequently and we will revisit throughout the semester. And it's really very key to understanding how social welfare is dealt with as it is. So chapter 1, 9 American values. And then, again, not yet assigned, but 1, 2, and 3 are going to be assigned in the second week. So you might want to get a head start. Well, that's it. Every time I do this lecture, I tell myself I'm gonna get this done in a half an hour, and I just get too chatty, and I can't do it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or phone me if you need to, whatever. But I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Look through the course menu, read your syllabus, and we'll get started so that you have this week. You've already figured out how to get into week 1. Week 2 will show up next Sunday morning at 12:05 a.m. and we will go from there. Okay? I'm glad to be able to do this again this semester. I think is a great class, and I think by the end of the semester you will be glad that you took the course. I think you're going to find, if you think it's dry, you're going to find it's not dry by the end of the semester. And in fact, it's going to probably arm you with a lot of good facts and ideas as you deal with the election issues this year. So anyway, until next week, I hope you have a good week, and take care, everybody. Bye for now.